surprise shone light from distant northern skies. At that point, I realized I don't know where it comes from, but I know it's okay. This is all an illusion, and I'm willing to play.
Welcome to the Quantum Guide Show, interviews with awakened masters as they share their quantum work with you. The Quantum Guide Show is produced by Karen Holton, creator of the 9 Steps to Quantum Health Transformation, a free 9-step online course to give you the tips and resources you need to thrive. Karen lost and continues to keep off 178 pounds of surplus body weight as she made her dreams come true. Whether you are awakening to the ascension process or simply want a wiser, more efficient lifestyle, this program is for you. No strings attached. The Quantum Guide Show is brought to you in part by Zendome's Orgonite, Karen's unique brand of orgone generators, ethically sourced, handmade, and double charged for maximum effect. Find out how orgone generators work and what they can do for you. Don't be fooled by imitations. Check out Karen's current selection, only available from her website, KarenHoltonHealthCoach.com, and on Facebook, facebook.com/Quantum Health Transformation. Enjoy the show.
Welcome back to the Quantum Guide Show. Today in episode 51, part 1, my guest is Dave Petrella. Dave is an astrologer, biologist, spiritual guide, and Oak Island theorist. He's traveled to all 50 states and most of Canada doing research. Dave has studied world religions extensively, along with Eastern medicine, metaphysics, and topics related to extraterrestrial intelligence. For the first time, Dave is going to incorporate the Western teaching of time, the Eastern teaching of time, and the Mayan teaching of time, in order to show you, the viewers, how it all fits together. Dave is available for teaching, birth charts, relationship matching, spiritual guidance, and many other topics. And he is available on Facebook, Instagram, and by email. And the links will be posted in the description box below this video, so be sure to check him out. And be sure to tune in next week for part 2 of this amazing presentation. Welcome, Dave, to the Quantum Guide Show. How are you doing?
Great, Karen. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. You're a wealth of information, and I'm just so grateful that you're here to share it with the viewers and with me. So I thought we'd start off with, maybe you could just talk a little bit about your education and your background, and maybe touch on what does it mean to be an Oak Island theorist? Because after meeting you was the first time I ever actually heard about that. So I'm sure the viewers would like to know more about that too.
Okay, sure. Basically, I went to school for biology. I actually did that a lot in high school too. That was my principal focus. And, I learned the Western form of biology, which is, of course, how they teach it. I'm from the United States, how they teach it over in North America. So I had a really good basis for that. And then along the way, I also got into mythology. I took a course in 2006 on Greek and Roman mythology. And it was probably the best course I've ever taken in my life, to be honest with you, because it started to open up the possibilities of crossover for me between biology and mythology and, ancient history and all these things coming together, which is actually really what I do now, bring all the concepts together. And so I picked up that course. I kind of reignited my interest in spirituality and ancient history and everything. And then a little bit down the line, well, probably more than a little bit, I would say 2008, 2009, I traveled the United States, and I had gone to all 48 states by the end of 2009, the lower 48 states. And then I, of course, finished with Alaska and Hawaii later. And a lot of it was, doing research. It was trying to understand local traditions and what people believe. I would talk to people. I'd go to their meetings or services or whatever to learn. And I also got to learn a lot about geography and geology and everything. As you're going through these different regions, it really changes. And the other thing that really changes is the energy really changes. And, something I think you would appreciate in terms of crystals and everything is that when you get to an area with a lot of solid rock, it's a very different feeling that you get. And actually, a lot of those places really support high level spirituality because of the amount of electricity that's being conducted and the piezoelectric effect, which I know you know all about that as well. But I felt that, and when I walk on the land, and then when you compare it to if you go spend a lot of time in a swamp, for instance, you're getting nothing. It's actually taking that energy from you, and it makes it harder to focus spiritually and keep your energy up because you don't have support. So all those things kind of came together. And then in 2015, I learned astrology, and I actually learned it from starting off of YouTube. I found a video. I'll put it this way. I was researching Eastern medicine. So I had the education of Western medicine through college. And then I said, well, you know what? All these spiritual concepts, they really seem to know what they're talking about from the East, specifically like India and China. That's where I focus, mostly India, but I focus over there. And I said, well, let's see what they know about medicine. And of course, the Chinese have the meridian system, and the Indians have the chakra system, and all of these wonderful concepts that happen to be very accurate and thousands and thousands of years of practice. So I kind of put those two together finally. I yoked the Western and the Eastern traditions of biology and spirituality. And it took a very long time to try to make sense of it all because people have, and I was just talking with someone about this about 10 minutes ago, is that people, they decide what they want to focus on, and then that becomes their spiritual tradition or their religion or whatever. It doesn't mean that they don't necessarily believe other things, but they chose for a specific idea or principle to be their focus. And when that happens, you miss on the whole rest of the story. And so I set out to really fill in the rest of the story. So anyway, 2015, I was looking for information about the Eastern concepts of biology, and a lot related to the chakra system and Ayurveda medicine, which is out of India. It's the oldest intact medicine system in the world. Most of the texts still exist, so you can actually read the original text and everything, which of course I've done as well. And I found on the suggestions column to the right, it said a bunch of videos about astrology. So I said it by the same person, who's actually my friend Santos Bonacci. I know you know him, I think.
Yeah, and, actually, I do know him. That's awesome.
Yep. So it was Santos that
Santos and I used to go to the same church, and we quit, and that's sort of what binds us together. But yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
And that was in Australia?
Yeah, that was when he was still in Australia.
Oh, that's phenomenal. Okay, that's a very close connection. That's great, Karen. That's really great. Okay, so the video that he put out, and I'm just going to tell people because I would really recommend that everyone watches this video. It's the most important video I've ever found in my entire life. All of my education, all of my research. If someone had put this in front of me when I was a senior in high school, everything would have changed. Completely different how I would have approached things. And so I want people to see this, especially, everyone, but really especially people who are maybe even younger than me, to get exposure to it, just so you know it exists. That's the biggest problem for me, Karen, is that people don't even know some of these things exist. So you can say whatever you want about it, but please, I want people to know that this is something available to them, and it might really help you, really, really help you, especially when you get it down and you really understand it. So, okay, so the video is called, let's see which one it was. I believe the best one it's called "Your Body is the Holy Land," and just type in, right, and then type in Santos Bonacci, and this is where everything comes together: astrology, biology, and spirituality. All three come together perfectly, perfect harmony. And, this was intact, fully intact, probably 8,000 years ago, maybe, minimum. And then it got, like I said, it got split as ideas, as people migrated and territories were conquered, and there was manipulation and covering up ideas and all these things. And that's how that happens. You give it that much time, 8,000 years or more. So anyway, I'd recommend everyone watches that. The other one that's really I'd recommend is called The Secret of Secrets Hiding in the Bible. That's a 2-part video as well. But between those two, you're going to be absolutely astonished. And I was never the same, and I will never be the same after having seen that.
Yep.
Watch,
It's life changing.
Right, right. So I watched those 2 videos, and then what I did was I went to his astrology videos, and I said he did such a good job, and this was exactly what I was looking for. And I literally fell off my chair that day. It was January of 2015. I'll never forget it. And I said, this has existed for my entire life, and this is the first time I'm seeing this. You have to be kidding me. This is the actual information that we need. So then I gave him a chance because he did such a good job with the biology information, the correct biology information out of India, and actually Egypt too. But a lot of that material from Egypt was obscured, and or hidden and or destroyed by certain empires. We do have most of it from India, and I'm so thankful for that. So anyway, I gave him a chance, and I paid really close attention. It was very difficult in the beginning. I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea what he was doing. I didn't even know if it was real. So I started to do I did my birth chart. I did my family and friends' birth charts. And I said, okay, there's something going on here. After I did maybe 20 of them. And, I'm a scientist. I was trained as a scientist. Even honestly, starting in the 5th grade. I'll go back to the 5th grade. That's how long I've been doing this. And so, and I'm in my mid-30s now. And so the thing that happens is that you see that there's a trajectory, that there's information that is going to be helpful to follow. And I use the scientific method on astrology and with the charts that I did. And I said, you know what? It doesn't matter if I don't like this. It happens to be true. And it's true because I started with hypothesis. I gathered evidence. The evidence was repeatable, and it was solid. And it was solid across 20 different or 30 different people that I did. So at that point, if you're a proper scientist, you have to say, you know what, this is real. And it doesn't matter.
You have the consistency that is your proof.
Right. Yes, exactly. And it's also, a sign of maturity that you can do that as a person and as a scientist. I go with the evidence. I don't go with what I want. And I never go with what I want. It takes a lot of discipline to be able to do that, and you have to be very solid in what you believe, because you might find something that completely upends everything you believe. And if it happens to be real, then if you're a truth seeker, you have to go with it. There's not a choice. So that's a summary of that, Karen. Did you ask me something else too that you wanted me to?
Well, I just wondered if you could tell the viewers a little bit about the oak. What does it mean to be an Oak Island theorist? Because that was a term I hadn't heard before.
Okay, Oak Island is in Nova Scotia, Canada. It's about an hour out of Halifax, the capital. And it's the longest treasure hunt in history. So it's been going on since 1795. And the story is that 3 young men found a pit dug in the ground. It had some strange markings around it. There were platforms and everything every 10 feet. So it was like a very metered system, and it was something that would, just randomly find this. And so basically, people have been looking for that treasure since 1795, and supposedly it has not yet been recovered. And the thing about it is that there's it's on an island, so there's flood tunnels coming from the ocean, and the salt water actually floods this pit. So when you dig straight down to go try to get that treasure, you get within maybe about 10 feet of it, and now it's pretty much all destroyed because of all the excavations through the years. But you're 10 feet away from it, and you put that shovel into that last platform, and then it floods with seawater, and you can't get to what you're supposed to get to. So there's something really interesting going on, and it just so happens that a lot of the teachings, the mystical teachings around it, and the spiritual teachings happen to align with what I already do. So I saw the show on TV in I think that was also 2015. That was a really big year for me, and I sent a correspondence to their company, and I was able to get on the island in 2017 in the summer, and I did a presentation. It's what's called the War Room. I did a presentation in the War Room, and with most of the cast there, and everything was filmed. And the following day, we went out in the field, and we did we measured, and we took some calculations, and I had mentioned where I would recommend digging, etc. So, and unfortunately, it didn't actually air. So, you know, it's a shame, but I value my experience there, and it's, you know, the things that you see there are second to none. These somehow this island incorporates the top teachings of the world, and I have my
Mm-hmm.
ideas of how that happened. Um, a lot of them are pretty strange. You know, you really have to get into it to kind of get a feel for what's going on. But there's also, you know, there's other things that can be happening. There were a lot of pirates and privateers in the region for many hundreds of years. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure there's other shallow treasures buried randomly wherever they decided to put it. And it's a really great show, and I recommend people follow it. They're finding stuff from, you know, like medieval Europe. They believe the Templars have been involved. Recently they found a
Mm-hmm.
lot of indications that the Portuguese were involved. So
Mm-hmm.
whether they find anything or not, it's a really wonderful story, and it teaches you a lot about ancient history. That part of Canada, if you're coming from Europe or you're coming from Africa and you're trying to be, you know, in that part of that northern part of I say mid North America, you know, the Canadian United States border,
Mm-hmm.
your first stop is really Newfoundland, and then after that it's Nova Scotia. So everyone kind of had to come through there. So you see evidence of
Mm-hmm.
all these cultures. It's really fascinating. But there's also something very mystical about this place, and it's a very high level, highly spiritually charged area. So it's not just you looking for a treasure. There's consciousness there. There are, I would say, entities there. There's beings there. There's actually ghosts that are not related to that part. There's military ghosts because there's a lot of that presence. So anyway, that's kind of the short of it. But it's, you know, it's a huge
Wow.
topic.
While you were talking, what was going through my mind was one of my favorite movies of all time is called Goonies. And it was some kids that are out on a pirate treasure hunt, and what happened. It's still one of my favorite shows today. But anyway, thank you for that, because that is super interesting and it gives us another avenue for research. And yeah, it's amazing. There is so much exciting, positive, inspiring information, but we've never heard of it. So now shows like mine and other shows, we're all exposing what's possible, what can be real if you just take a look at it and give it half a chance. And I'm just so thrilled that you're able to share that information with us. So should we go on to the oh, I just want to remind everybody too that this is part one, and we're going to air part two next week. So please do come back next week for the final portion of this show. But to begin with, we're going to take a look at a bit of a slideshow presentation to illustrate as Dave gives his presentation. Should we start that now, Dave?
Yep, I think so. I'm ready, Karen, if you're ready.
Okay. Okay, here we go. I am just going to remove the side. Whoops. There we go. So we have more. And put us off to the side. And here we go with slide number one. Take it away, Dave.
Okay, great. Now am I still in the video, Karen? I don't see myself anymore.
Yeah, you and I are in little boxes off to the side. So we're smaller than the screen share, but we're definitely there.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so what I want to talk about with everyone today, I want to do a basic overview of how astrology works, and then we're going to go into cycles of time, which is going to hopefully give people a better idea of what's actually happening right now and why it's such a tumultuous period and where we're headed, and how it's actually something that we can count on. The universe is very structured. It may not seem like it based on our limited perspective, but it is a really beautiful, brilliant structure, and it is organized very well. And so I hope it also gives people some hope that it's not all just haphazard, that there is a plan.
Mhm.
There's a universal plan and a master plan. It's not quite how I would do it if it was up to me. It's pretty messy, and it's not really that pleasant, a lot of it. But whoever created this solar system, and even bigger than the solar system, that's how they wanted to do it. So I have to respect that because I'm in their system. If I don't, then I am being ignorant, and that's actually really dangerous. So I'm understanding what they did, and when I say they, I'll just say right now what I believe is that this solar system was created by an extraterrestrial civilization.
Mhm.
I think it was the Anunnaki. I think they were based in Nibiru, and if we have time at the end, I'll show you guys a little bit more of that. But it's not necessarily a negative thing. There's positive and negative to a lot of it, and maybe we can get into a little bit of that too. Okay, so this first slide, and it's really relevant today, obviously, because the Northern Hemisphere just went through the winter solstice, which was on the 21st, and it's the shortest day of the year. Which means it's the darkest day of the year in the Northern Hemisphere, and it's of course the opposite. It's summer. It was summer on the 21st in the Southern Hemisphere. And so what's happening right now, today's the 22nd. So this is what I say, for 3.33 days, this is one of the indications of 33. If people are interested in that number, it's a very important number. The sun does not move. So it's at a standstill, which means that you're not gaining light, you're not losing light. And we're in that 3.33 day bracket right now. And so what happens, as you can see at the bottom of the picture, is that when you get to December 25th, that is the day that you start gaining light for the first time. It's not standing still anymore. It's actually increasing. It's by a few seconds, the first few days, and then it increases exponentially more and more every day, until at least the spring equinox. And then you're headed up to the summer solstice, obviously, which I'll get to in a second. But in any case, it's the beginning of winter. That's also what it means, December 21. And it's called the birth of the sun. So this is the story of the sun. All stories really are solar stories throughout all time, the spirituality, religions. They all tell the story of the sun, because without the sun, none of this would even be here. So the primary source of power for our solar system is the sun, which should be obvious. It's also the birth of the son, Jesus, and S-U-N and S-O-N. It's not really a big stretch. It doesn't take away from the story of Jesus. I think it's actually a wonderful story. It's one of my favorite stories. But we have to also understand that the focus is also on astrology. So you can't separate them. They're together. And Jesus was a solar deity, represented the sun. Christians, they worship on Sunday because it's the sun. He's the sun, S-O-N, and it's the sun in the sky, S-U-N. Okay, so light will be increasing all the way till we get to the spring equinox, which is around March 20th every year. And at the spring equinox, what you end up doing is you start having more light than darkness. So it's actually, you can call it the second birth if you want, or you call it the rebirth or the resurrection. And it's also right around where Easter is. It's roughly where the Passover is. Passover means you're passing over the equator line, which is the equinox line. And all of these traditions, they call it something different, but it's the same idea. And after March 20th, the sun increases in power. It gets stronger and stronger every day. And then you get to the summer solstice, which is around June 21st every year. It's when the sun is highest in the sky. It's the longest day of the year. It's also, I like to say this because I don't think a lot of people think about this, especially in terms of astrology, but it's where the sun is the most powerful as well. So if you go outside on June 21st, the sun, it might not be, 90 degrees Fahrenheit. And I apologize, I do Fahrenheit because I live in the United States, but it's, I don't know, 30, 32, 33 Celsius, something like that. If it's not that, if it's a lot cooler than that, it's still, the sun is going to feel like it's searing your skin because the rays are very, very strong. Whereas if you go into mid-August, which is actually where Leo is, we'll talk about that, the sun is not nearly as high. It's actually starting to die. You're losing light, but the air temperature is hotter generally than the summer solstice, but the rays are not as searing on your skin. And actually the night comes sooner, it cools down faster. So there's all this dynamic that happens. It's not just one thing, you have a balance with it. So after summer solstice, after that, it's, the death period of the year, and the sun starts to die. Are you losing power? You're losing light every day. You still, like I said, you go through a very hot part of the summer, the hottest part of the summer. And then you get to the fall equinox, which is around September 22nd or 23rd every year in the Northern Hemisphere. And that's, again, your equinox, by the way, means equal night. And so it means equal day and equal night. That's what that's indicating, that line. And then as you go down the other side, you end up in what's called the womb or the tomb. It's the same idea. It's the same word of the earth, which is the dark part of the zodiac. The bottom half of the zodiac is the dark part. That part is where it's, darker than it is lighter for the entire 6 months in that portion. So you're going through the death of the sun until you get to the winter solstice again. And that repeats every year the same way. You do have the leap year factor, which it takes 4 years to balance out, and you have that extra day. And what I believe is that the zodiac it's a perfect circle. So there's 360 degrees in the zodiac. And what that means to me is that the year should be 360 days. And in fact, the Mayans, at least at some point in their history, they actually used that calendar. They used the 360-day calendar. I think it was like a separate plus 5 day calendar or something to account for the 5 extra days. But the reason I believe it's 365.25 instead of 360 every year is because we're living in a non-perfect dimension. I'll put it that way. It's that everything's slightly skewed. If you were in a higher dimension, it would be, I believe, be closer to 360. The closer you get to that perfection point, you're going to get up to that. Okay, so we can go to the next slide, unless you have a question, Karen.
No, I'm all good so far.
Okay. Okay, so this slide is the same, really it's the same configuration that I had just shown everyone. And what it is this is the actual zodiac. Slide before was showing you the sun and what happens with the power and light and day and everything. And now you're going to see that this circle, which is a perfect circle in the zodiac diagram, is broken into 12 parts. And there are 12 pieces of a pie. They're each 30 degrees, and 30 times 12 is 360. So it's, as you can see, you're already seeing some very high level organization here. And it's the same positionings. Over at the left, I didn't write it in this one, but over at the left, the spring equinox starts with Aries, and it goes all the way up to summer solstice, which is the beginning of Cancer, down to the beginning of the fall, which is the fall equinox, which is Libra, beginning of first day of Libra, and then the beginning of the winter solstice, which is the first day of Capricorn. And again, that happens every year. Each of these signs, they are what are called either cardinal, fixed, or mutable. And so if you break this into 4, each quadrant has one of those 3 that is representing that idea. The first sign of each quadrant, which starts off each season, is called the cardinal sign. And then the middle sign is called the fixed sign. It's fixed because it's stuck in the middle and it doesn't move. And actually, all of the fixed signs are very stubborn. They can tend to be very stubborn people because they're fixed. They're fixed in the center of the season, and it's supposed to be that way. It's designed that way. And then the last one is the mutable sign, which is changeable, which of course is what mutable indicates. And then each of these signs, the zodiac signs, it has a planet that traditionally rules the sign. And what that is Mars, Venus, Mercury. And then you have Cancer and Leo are ruled by only one. The moon rules Cancer, the sun rules Leo, and they each only represent one sign of the zodiac, whereas every other planet, it actually rules two different signs. So they're very specific and special in Cancer and Leo. And there's lots of reasons for that too. Those are the Cancer is the female archetype in the sky, and Leo is the male archetype in the sky. And that's the reason why. Those are the 2 really power signs for that archetype. Okay, and then you have each of the signs also have an element associated with them. And so you got, of course, fire, earth, air, and water. And there's 3 of each of those in the zodiac. And it's actually really helpful for a lot of reasons. But one of them is if you're trying to match people up for whatever reason. You don't generally want to put a fire sign and a water sign together because they cancel each other out. The fire sign is too strong for the water sign, and the water sign is too relaxed for the fire sign. But there's a lot of ways to match. That's just one of them. And the same goes with earth and air. You don't really want to pair those necessarily. So you have that represented. And there's a lot of other things that you can put on here. You can put the colors on here. You can actually overlay the human body onto this, which is a whole different topic. That's where it comes into biology. And this is our system. This is our system of our solar system. Now, every other solar system can be completely different. I am sure it is actually, but this is how ours was designed. And if we understand this, we can see the wonderful order that's in place, and we can it helps us to understand our place in the solar system. And of course, when we look at our birth charts, it helps us to understand our own mission and how we were designed and how we were created. And it's really good because people will understand that, you know, if there's something about you that's really good or you find to be not so good, there's generally a really good reason for it. And it's in that chart. It's in your birth chart. You can find everything and all the explanations you could ever want for why you're the way you are in that chart. I guarantee it. That's how we'll talk for a second about metaphysics. That's how the human body is actually formed. It has to go through this pattern. This is actually, the zodiac is actually, it's the mind. If you're going to put this on the human body, it's actually where your mind exists. It's actually the same. It correlates directly with the chakra system, and so this is the 8th chakra. This whole wheel, this whole zodiac exists in the 8th chakra, which is the one directly above your head, which is where the mind field comes in, and that's where that exists. And all these signs actually are also through your body, starting with Aries, the top of the head. If you know, in Aries, they usually have very large foreheads, large craniums, and they have prominent eyebrows. And that's because the power is up here for if they're an Aries person. And then it goes all the way down to the feet, which are the 2 fish of Pisces. And you know, the fish, they look like feet. If you were to take the fish, especially like the fish bones, or you think just marine in general, you're going to see that they look like flippers maybe, or part of some kind of a whale or something like that. The human feet they're supposed to look like that. Okay, so that's the zodiac. And you know, it's really never ending. You can draw all conclusions. It's the master system of the solar system. It will never let you down if you truly understand it.
Yeah,
Okay,
I really love the is it called concordances, where you find out what crystals are also within your within your division of your horoscope, the planets, like for instance, which element, like there's so many things that correspond to your horoscope. I was really surprised. Colors, everything corresponds to this.
That's right, Karen. I mean, even the alphabet's in there. You've got mentioning the stones. You also have the metals, which I'll actually list them because people might find this very interesting. And I know you work with a lot of materials, so it might be really helpful to hear this. And I'll get to it hopefully at the end of the presentation again too. But the metals, they have a direct correlation with the 7 traditional planets, and it's really important to know this because, especially if you know like you're saying, if you know your sign, then you know, use your metal. Pick the metal that correlates to your sign and work with it. And you're going to feel the resonance and the vibration specific to you. Whereas if you just pick something random, you know, you're probably not going to feel that. So starting at the bottom, and like I said, we'll hopefully get to this at the end a little bit more. But starting at the bottom, you start with the moon. The moon is equivalent to the 1st chakra. And that's the other thing, is that each planet is equivalent to a specific chakra and a specific color and a specific metal and a specific note, everything. It's all perfectly designed. And so the metal of the moon is silver, which is not a stretch. If you look up at the moon, what does it look like? And then you have the next one up is Mercury, which is Mercury, obviously, the liquid metal Mercury. And actually that topic is very fascinating because of the chemical and physical properties of Mercury make it very unique. It's a flowing metal, you know, it exists in that form. It's also very highly biologically toxic. So, you know, people got to be really careful with that. Okay, and then after Mercury, you have Venus. And I know this probably directly relate for you, Karen, because Venus is copper. And copper is very antibacterial, and it's a loving energy. It's a nice, soft, loving energy, healing energy. And then after that, you have the sun, which of course is gold. So you have the sun gold, the moon is silver. And then after that, you have Mars, which is iron. And Mars is the god of war. So, why do we make our weapons out of iron? Because that's Mars's metal. That's how this works. And then also the Iron Age, things like that. That's would be the age of Aries, generally speaking, which I'll show you in the next slide. And then after that, you have Jupiter, which is tin. And actually speaking about movies, if you were to take a look at The Wizard of Oz, the Tin Man, that's Jupiter. They knew that. Some of these people that created this, they knew these high teachings. And actually gets a lot more brilliant than that, because there are very subtle topics of biology that are actually pieced into The Wizard of Oz too. It's a really masterful work on ascension, actually. And then after Jupiter, you have Saturn, which is lead. And Saturn is heavy and oppressive, just like lead. Very, very heavy metal. It's also very toxic metal. That's something we have to be very careful with. So those are the metals.
Wonderful. Our time is slipping by so fast here, Dave. I'm wondering, should we go on to the next slide?
Sure. Yeah, I'm ready if you're ready.
The great year.
Okay, so now we're going to start talking about cycles of time, because I know that's something that everyone's very interested in. It's based on the same system as the zodiac. So when you see the circle, this actually, it covers everything. It covers the year, which is the 365.25 day period. And then the great year is actually, it goes in the reverse direction. And this indicates what age that you're in currently. And people might be more familiar with this. It's called the Procession of the Equinoxes. And the reason it's called that is because on the spring equinox every year, you know which age you're in based on which sign is on the horizon on the spring equinox. And so we just entered Aquarius. So Aquarius would be on the horizon on the spring equinox. Each of these ages that you can see, they're each, they're 30-degree pieces. So people, if you want to read up on the top right corner, I can kind of detail what's going on. It's a little complex. I mean, it's very mathematical. You have to have a kind of mathematical mind a little bit. But I'll try to make it as simple as possible. So each of the 12 signs have an age associated with them. And like I said, it goes in reverse. Whereas for the solar year, it goes the traditional way. The solar year goes clockwise. And then the great year goes counterclockwise. So actually, and if you think about that, you're actually creating a vortex with that. You have opposed spinning motions, and that creates a funnel of energy. And that's also how energy and light works and moves and everything. So it's an important concept. Okay, so this cycle, the great year cycle, is 25,920 years long. Each age is 2,160 years long. And so if you multiply 2,160 by 12, of course, you get 25,920. It's called the great year. And for every 72 years, the great cycle, Karen, it moves 1 degree. And this is going to be important as we go through the other slides too, because 72 is a very important number with astrology and also mystical teachings. Extremely important. And like I said, every 72 years, so if you live to 72 years old, this you will move 1 degree. You actually move 1/30th of one age you get to see. And that's about the max that humans see. I mean, of course, you could live a little bit older than that, but we don't see that much of the time scale and the time period. And so when you end up in a transition of an age, like we just went through, we're still really going through it, and I'll explain that in a second. It's going to be really shocking, because no one lives long enough to even know that there's 12 ages, and they have different features, and they have different energies and all this stuff. We can't see that because we don't live long enough. That's why we have to depend on our ancestors who actually knew what they were talking about to understand where we are on this timetable. So if you look at the bottom left part of this circle, you're going to see the age of Pisces. It just says Pisces. And so you can call that the age of the fish if you want to. You could call it the water age if you want to. There's so many things you can call it. But the age of Pisces was characterized by a lot of kindness, a lot of wonderful artistic endeavors, and high level spirituality and all kinds of stuff like this, caring for your neighbor, good wisdom, things of that nature. It's actually interesting because, again, if you look at how the movies came out, right at, before 2012, we still had some of those kind of classic, like heartfelt movies. I know they're still out there. They're on, Hallmark Channel, stuff like this, but it was pervasive through music, through movies, through the culture. There was like a warmth, like a warm energy, a big warm energy that kind of pervaded all the arts and everything. And then suddenly in 2012, well, that went goodbye. And the reason is because the torch was passed to the age of Aquarius. And so before I get to that, I just want to go back right around the year 0, which is the year of Jesus's birth, traditionally, right around that. He came in at the beginning of the age of Pisces. And that's actually why he's associated with the fish, because it's the age of Pisces. And actually, the story of the fish goes hand in hand with the story of the loaves of bread. It's the fish and the loaves. That's because the opposite sign to Pisces is Virgo, and Virgo is the harvest every year. So, embedded in this story is another story that's an astrological story. I actually personally believe that he was real and that he did do these things and these things happened. But what the higher intelligences do, Karen, is that they stack levels of meaning on top of each other. And you can be, I try to read, sometimes when I'm doing something, I'm reading 10 levels of meaning at the same time. And sometimes even more, especially when it comes to the Bible. And they all happen to be true at the same time. It's absolutely fascinating. And you can't have that if you don't have a very, very high intelligence that's operating the system. It's absolutely genius and brilliant. I have so much respect for it. It's also a little bit, distorted though. Because some of the things we have to see on this planet are not easy. They can be difficult. Okay, so the ruler of Pisces is Jupiter, and the name for Jupiter, the alternate name for Jupiter is Zeus. So if you want to see where Jesus came from, it's Jupiter Zeus. It's a conjunction of Jupiter and Zeus, again indicating the age of Pisces. There's another place it came from too, which is Isis. If you take the J off of Jesus, you get essentially Isis. And all of these things, they all correlate perfectly. You just have to know where to look. All right, so and Jesus said in the Bible, and I think he said it more than once, he said, I will be with you until the end of the age. And he was being literal, absolutely literal. When Pisces ends, Jesus is going to be leaving the earth. And at least in the form that we were familiar with. And so each of these ages has an ascended master. This is what I believe. A lot of people believe, other people believe this as well. That kind of watches over things, makes sure the energy is solid in that in the whichever paradigm you're trying to set. So for Pisces, of course, it's for Pisces. And Jesus was the Jupiter, Zeus, ruler of Pisces. Okay, so then we come up on 2012, which is, was also the end of the Mayan calendar, and I'll get to that in a minute. All of these things line up, guys. We really can understand it. It's kind of difficult. You have to really spend a lot of time with the traditions. You have to have good intuition, but I'll show you how it works. So 2012, roughly, I'll just say roughly because I actually believe it was anywhere between 2008 to 2020. Somewhere in that bracket, we completely shifted into Aquarius with no more Pisces at all, not even overlap. It's completely gone. And, if we look at how things have been utterly destroyed, some of the paradigms, again, in the traditions and the cultural aspects, you can see that something very serious happened. And it's not just that this is how it happened. No, it's actually was planned that way. And it's part of the great year. It's how this circle keeps going around as well. Every 25,920 years, you get a new great year cycle. So one of the best things that we can see is when we look back in history, we can see a lot of what the ancient people were doing. And even so much as to what they were worshiping and why they were doing it in that time bracket. And I'll show you that in a second, a little bit. But 2012, let's just say 2012 because it makes it really easy. So let's just say December 21, 2012, which was the end of the Mayan calendar, was the beginning of the age of Aquarius. So the Mayans did, and I'll get into more of this in a second, but the Mayans did say that was the end of their long count calendar, 2012. And some people said, well, it's the end, is it the end of the world, or is it the end of what is it? And really what it is, it's the end of the age. And it's actually probably more than that. But for these purposes right now, let's just say it was the end of the age of Pisces. They knew that. They weren't here to see it. They actually left the planet a lot sooner than that. But they were obviously given the information somehow for their culture. And I believe fully that we have many examples throughout history, probably most of them, in my opinion, of you can say, God figures or ascended beings or whatever you want, lesser gods coming down to the planet and giving people teachings, like fully intact pieces of, this is how you do mathematics, this is how you do biology, this is how you farm, this is how you organize social structures. And I believe they were given to populations of humans. I actually believe also that a lot of populations of humans were actually specifically brought to Earth by a specific lesser god. And then that god was overseeing them and making sure that they had success, teaching them the things that they need. And I believe there were pieces of land that were selected for specific types of populations. I think we have many representations of people from different parts of the universe that were brought here by their leader, by their god. And he said, we're going to have this new adventure, and I'm going to try to help you. And you look all over the world, even the natives actually in North America, I know specifically, and I've worked with a lot of them, they talk about, we were always here. And I say, hey, well, where did you come from? They said that here. And I'm like, how is that possible? And when I was saying that, it was like, 15 years ago before I started doing this. But the reason it's possible is because you can come from underground. There's actually a lot of stories of that in the Southwest, with the ant people helping some of those tribes out there, the Zuni, I believe. You can come from underground. You can come through a portal. You can come through a wormhole. Anything, literally. It's all physics are possible for specifically when you get into quantum fields and really high energy gradients and things.
Absolutely. Dave, we're run out of time for the show today. I'm wondering if just in a couple of minutes you can sum up the slide, and then we'll continue with next week's show, and we'll continue on from where we left off.
Okay, yeah, sure, Karen. Well, let's see. So I showed you the different planets. I showed you 2012. We're going to pick up next time with the age of Aquarius, and we'll talk about what that means and what we can expect from that.
Perfect. Well, I want to thank you so much for being on the show today and sharing your wealth of information with all of us. And I encourage everybody to please like and share this video with your friends, subscribe to my channel, check out Dave's links that are in the description below, and come back next week for part 2 of this fascinating presentation. And thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you, Dave. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. See you next week.
Thank you for joining us for the Quantum Guide Show. Become the change you wish to see in the world. Subscribe to Karen's YouTube channel, click the like button, and share this show with your friends. Check out Karen's website at KarenHoltonHealthCoach.com. All the links are available in the description box below. Until the next time, keep up the good work.
Splendor into endlessness puts all my inner strife to rest. For time gives birth to hurriedness. It all makes sense, well, more or less. And the sages put me to their test. Heart and soul to do my best to find the answers to my quest. I wonder and I must confess, I don't know where it comes from, but I know it's okay. If this is all an illusion, care.